Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year. I am Rachel Peniston, Manager of Partnership Programs for the NFCC, and your host for today's Financial Facts Chat. If you are joining us on Facebook or YouTube, thank you. It's great to have you with us for our first live stream of 2021. If you enjoy today's show, please like, comment, share with your friends, and subscribe to our page. That helps us demonstrate your support for nonprofit financial education, and it keeps this channel going. So I want to introduce our two panelists today. We've got Bruce McClary, SVP of Communications for the NFCC. Bruce is back once again and ready to answer your questions during today's chat. I also want to introduce our special guest today, Lisa Terry from our NFCC member agency, Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. She is ready to share expert advice to help answer today's questions. So with that, let's get right to it. What tips do you guys have for people who have set a financial resolution for the new year? Lisa, let's start with you. And let's get into some advice for people with resolutions related to paying off debt.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachel, for having me today. I do appreciate it, and Happy New Year to you all at the NFCC, as well as everyone that is listening, either live or later for the recording. So resolutions, I think, we all try to make them. We all assume that it's something that we have to do because it is a new year. I think that we can all agree that 2020 has been like no other. So even though we have changed the calendar and we are into a new year, we are still unfortunately carrying over the weight, the burden, and the uncertainty of the pandemic. So I think that has definitely made or will make a big impact on resolutions. I think instead of using the word resolution, I kind of like the word goals, financial goals. And also just thinking about the specific goals. And so right now, because of the pandemic, it probably will direct or change whatever those goals may be because of the situation that we are in. My biggest advice or expert advice would be to make it very specific. So if you are wanting to pay off debt, how much debt? Do you even know how much debt you owe? Do you know what your interest rates are? How many loans you have? Is it student loan debt? Is it credit card debt? What types of debt do you have? So for any goal that anyone wants to achieve, the first thing is to be very specific. What is it? How much is it? Or a percentage of it and what that number looks like? Who do you owe? How much do you owe? And what your plan of attack will be in reducing that debt. And of course, everyone has probably heard of SMART goals. S is for specific. M is for measurable. A is for, is it achievable? Is it attainable? R, realistic. And if we had another word that we could start with the R, I would think that the realistic piece is really the most important, because whatever it is that you do want to do, you need to make sure that you are very specific and realistic in achieving that goal. And then, of course, timely. Put a time measurement to that. If you want to make the year 2021 your time, your calendar, then how are you going to break that down in monthly, payday increments, et cetera, throughout the year in order to achieve what that goal is in paying down your debt?
Thanks, Lisa. I really like that advice about creating the SMART goals. I think I'm going to take a look at my resolutions and have a look at that framework and see if my goals are as realistic as I'm hoping they are.
And sometimes they'll be so broad that when you look at it in a whole picture, it can be overwhelming. So you kind of have to break it down into smaller bits and pieces. So even if it is debt, do you want to start with your smallest balance first and pay that off? Or do you want to look at your highest interest rate loans first or debt first? Me personally, if I have 5 loans or 5 credit cards, if I have one with the smallest balance, chances are I can probably knock that one out first. So now instead of 5, I have 4. So it looks like I've achieved at least a small goal in reducing the number of loans that I may have. Someone else may look at that differently based on interest rates. And so that's where it's going to be very specific and individualized for each household and what their specific goals may be. But that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and that also brings up a good point too, because motivation is a big part of this. And so you can see early results. Maybe you're most motivated by that. That's awesome because it keeps you on track. So many people fall off track with their New Year's resolutions, especially the financial ones. So a little bit of progress is positive motivation that keeps you focused on getting your main goal achieved. So that's a good point to bring up some of these decisions, these tactical decisions that you make along the way, so that you get the results that you need and the results that keep you energized.
And Bruce, I'm glad you mentioned motivation, because that's also a huge factor in why are you wanting to set these goals? Are you setting it because it's the new year and it's the New Year's resolution and that's the thing to do? Or is it something that you really need to do? Because I think regardless of whether it's a new year or not, it is definitely all about timing and when it is right for you.
Yeah.
Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it might be timing for you or not. Because again,
yeah,
we're bringing this pandemic into a new year. And so for a lot of people, nothing has changed because we are still either working from home or not working and still having to make those adjustments because of the pandemic. So we may not be able to make a lot of big changes until something else does change.
Right. It's a good point.
And in light of all of that, keeping these kind of the SMART goals theme, Bruce, what would you advise for people who have other financial goals like saving or home ownership?
Well, those are very specific outcomes, building a secure and stable financial safety net through savings, and achieving the goal of home ownership, moving from renting to owning a home. There are a lot of steps involved in those processes. And again, because these are so far-reaching, these goals, the benefits of these goals, and even achieving the goal extends beyond the year that we're in currently. So if that's your goal for this year to get started on that journey, that goes back to being realistic about the different steps and having achievable steps along the way. So I think it helps if you just take savings, for example. If you're starting with nothing and you're in a position where you think you may be able to start building savings, you can work it backwards if you want, and you can think, okay, how much savings do I need for basic emergencies and unexpected expenses? Well, my recommendation, a lot of experts recommend this as well, is that you have at least 3 to 6 months of net income set aside for that purpose. Well, you add that up, you do the math, and you're thinking, that can be demotivating. You're thinking, oh my gosh, how long is it going to take me to save up for that? I think if you focus on that, it can be very demotivating, but you set progress points along that journey and start working towards those. And being in the habit of savings is winning half the battle. If you can establish the habit of putting money away incrementally, that in a way that's affordable and doesn't derail any of your other financial obligations, doesn't get in the way of anything, and that can be repeated on a regular basis where you're paying yourself first, which is what we always say, that's great. You started a journey that you'll probably be able to complete, but it's important to know how long it's going to take and what real progress means. And you also have to be realistic about it too. You have to know that emergencies may come up, unexpected expenses may come up, where you're going to go, it's going to be a matter of taking 10 steps forward and maybe 2 steps back. But that's okay. That's why savings is there. It's for that reason. So establish the habit is probably the first goal, I would say. If that's your resolution right there, try to stick to it and do something that's achievable. With home ownership, that can be a long journey depending on where you're starting from. So it's important to understand, and this is the same for savings too, there are resources that are there to help you. Nonprofit organizations like NFCC member agencies, like Financial Pathways and the others in the NFCC network, they have resources that are there to help you determine how to start and continue that savings journey. And they also have resources there where you can plug in and get housing counseling help, home ownership programs that help you learn about the home buying process, determine when you'll be home ownership ready and how to get there realistically. So use the resources that are in front of you to help you make better and more informed decisions, whether it's savings or whether it's buying your first home. But those are two really great goals to have this year if that's something that you're interested in doing and that you haven't already done.
Thanks, Bruce. That's great advice. While we're on the theme of resolutions, I wanted to ask you guys about this article that I read recently in the New York Times, which revolved around downsizing your New Year's resolutions. The author, Christina Karen, suggests writing out just one or two specific, small, and attainable goals that can help you develop confidence, sense of pride, and kind of improve your overall well-being. So for both of you, what do you think is different about making and keeping financial resolutions in 2021 versus kind of previous years?
Well, I think the biggest key point to really remember is to start small. Start somewhere, but just start small. It's going to be much easier to build up than it is to start too big and then feel like you've really failed or defeated your goal because you couldn't reach it. And so much in my counseling days, I would see that where clients would have these huge amounts coming out of their paycheck to go into a savings account, but then have to turn around and transfer it back into their checking account to live on, to pay bills with, because it was unrealistic. So even if it's starting with $5 a pay period, and you know you're not going to miss that when you get to that point, and then at some point you raise it to 10, you raise it to 15. If you get a raise, if you're fortunate enough to get a raise, then you increase it again so that you get used to living on that other amount and you don't even realize that you're saving. I had to trick myself into saving. I had to have it come from my paycheck and go to a completely different bank so that I didn't have immediate access to it. And so sometimes knowing yourself is going to also help determine what you may need to do so that you can try and be more successful in doing things that you haven't done before. And the habit, Bruce, that is like spot on. The habit is the thing to really get down pat. Not worry so much about the amount, but just get in the habit of doing it. There's this magical number about 66 days in order to be able to create a new habit. I think with money and food, it's probably a little longer. But I think that anytime you get started is the best place to start. And if you can work with your employer, especially if you have direct deposit like so many of us have now, and you have the ability to split that out into multiple accounts, again, even if it's just $5 or $50, and then as you get used to it, you can up that. And to watch your savings grow, at some point, like that switch clicks in your head, and it's now more exciting to watch your savings grow instead of spending. At least that's kind of what happened in my situation. So that's the habit, and starting somewhere and starting small.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you also included trickery. Because sometimes you have to trick yourself into establishing good habits. And I've used that method before. I'm not usually in favor of trickery, but it leads to good things. I guess everybody's the winner. But I would say, these are all great points. And Lisa brought up a lot of things that people need to keep in mind that are related to the central point of that article. But I think there's an underlying theme in that article that is worth putting forward here in this discussion. Is you also want to make this a pleasant process for you. You don't want this to be about setting yourself up for failure, which goes back to the things that Lisa talked about. Set realistic, achievable goals and start small. But give yourself rewards along the way. Pat yourself on the back. Celebrate your success. If you're only looking at being critical of your journey, it's going to undermine your ability to reach that goal. So I think a part of that journey in being successful and in turning the tables on all that we've seen that shows that these resolutions fail more often than they succeed, will flip the script. Make this a fun process where you reward yourself and that you go easy on yourself. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle room to make mistakes, because those mistakes are lessons. And when you learn from those lessons, you'll do better the next time. Just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move ahead. But having a little bit of fun along the way and making it a pleasant process, you're doing a lot to guarantee success when you do that. In addition to the things that Lisa talked about, was starting small and making it manageable.
I think another way to make it fun too, of course, now pre-COVID, when we could have classes together, I would do vision board workshops. So even if you made your own vision board, and now you can even, there's an app for that. You can even make electronic vision boards. So whether it's an affirmation or a picture of something, or a vision board that you want to create to remind you of what and why you are doing what you are doing, and writing it down. I am old school. I still do my budget with pen and paper. I don't use Excel spreadsheets. I have to write it down. To me, that's like getting into it, getting involved with it, having that direct connection with it. Because I do think as wonderful as technology is, it can also lead to a lot of separation. And so I write down my bills, and even though I get paid the same thing every month and I pay the same bills every pay period, I still write it down every pay period, just because I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And then I have something I can always refer back to. And so I think whether it's a journal, whether it's a cute pad and paper, or a vision board, or even an electronic app that you use, is also another way to kind of add some fun to it. And if you've got age appropriate kids, and they're part of this goal making process, what teenager wouldn't love to tell their mom, hey mom, don't forget to write that down that you spent that, because we're tracking our spending this month. Teenagers love to tell their parents what to do. So involving them in the process can also help. And then it also teaches them the importance of financial management as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I love the vision piece of this, because really, out of sight, out of mind. And if you don't have these goals in front of you and ever present in your life, the positive reminders and all of that, then you might get off track. It might be easier to get off track. So I love those tips.
And realizing too that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Rachel. And realizing too that somewhere along the line, you're always going to have to, you just know that you're going to have to anticipate for any kind of adjustments. And I don't know why, it's just that Murphy's Law, I guess. Anytime you try to do something new and different, what happens? The car breaks down, you've got a flat tire, you need brakes, the kids need something for band class. I mean, something always comes up.
Expect the unexpected.
Right. So just know that that's going to happen. And even if something comes up and it just wiped out the savings that you worked so hard to get to, be thankful you had it. And then you have to go back and work on replenishing those savings and keep going. Don't let those things knock you down. You got to just kind of pick yourself back up and just keep on moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely right. They're called emergency savings because they're used for emergencies, right? So I think you guys have touched upon so many topics. There's such a great wealth of information and all this advice. And I definitely feel inspired to go back and look at my own resolutions, with all of these things in mind. And I'm just kind of curious as to what both of you guys have for your resolutions, your financial goals, to use Lisa's term, this year for 2021.
I'll let you go first. I'm not going to.
Well, I know my first one is, and I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I am going to reduce my cable because I am tired of paying so much for cable when it's more than my electric bill. So I've kind of been doing my research, figuring out what I want to do, determining, what's important to us based on how, our household runs. And I think I've gotten my plan together. And if it can reduce my my cable bill by even half, I mean, that right there could go into my savings goal, which is my other one, is to increase my savings on top of what I'm already doing, to just try and get better at that. With the pandemic, I don't know about the rest of you out there, but Amazon has been my best friend, and there's like a pathway that they've been burning to my front door. So I need to push back on the computer and the shopping and kind of get my savings back up.
I love that approach, though, taking money out of one expense and then putting it somewhere where it's going to go to work for you.
Mhm.
Love that. I'm in the same boat. I've got some cost cutting areas that I need to pay attention to. It's been a different year, so I've saved money in some areas in the past year that I would have otherwise spent, like meals out, obviously, things like that. I didn't travel as much during the summer months for vacation, so that was good. But there are other areas where I added expenses where I should probably start backing off. And one of those things that's top of mind, and I think this segues into something that we'll be talking about a little bit more, Rachel, but I like all of these streaming services that I have. There's a redundancy there. I've got, a few music streaming services, and I've got video streaming and movies on demand and all of that, in addition to the cable channels, et cetera. I really need to take a hard look at that, see what I'm really using and where I'm getting some value, and then start trimming the cost. Because while this is the water droplet theory, it's that dripping faucet. It may look small when you look at the water drop, but it's what it builds up to in the bucket. That's the concern. And each of these streaming services may be $6 here, $8 there, $10 here, but it adds up. And when you look at a year's worth of all that, it's probably worth looking into and cutting that expense. What do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, I know that you and I have agreed to do a next personal finance challenge. And actually, I think we should go ahead and introduce it right now.
I think so.
So last year, Bruce and I undertook these kind of weekly challenges to try out different pieces of financial advice and see what works and what doesn't. We kicked it off by challenging each other to use as many coupons as we could while we were shopping. I think Bruce beat me there. He got an amazing deal at the grocery store. Next, we did. I'm looking at my notes here to remember what we did last year. We challenged each other to check our credit scores, which was very enlightening, and I'm glad I did that, and I'm going to keep doing that. And then this year, kind of going back to this theme that you guys had touched on just now, Bruce and I are going to be looking at all of our recurring automated subscriptions. So that definitely includes like cable, Lisa, like what you were talking about, Bruce, all of these different streaming services, kind of taking a full look at those, adding it all up, seeing what it costs, and managing anything that we were kind of automatically enrolled in, seeing where we could cut some of these unnecessary ones out. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about this one, Bruce. I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that I'm subscribed to way many more services than I use.
Are you oversubscribed? No.
Yes,
That's a big area. That's a big area for a lot of people, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because I even had that as a side note on my pad over here about spending leaks, and that's usually a big one, is all of the automated things that we have that come out. And now I know I'm guilty about if you want to try a new app or a new streaming something, so you do the 7-day free trial or the 30-day free trial, I've started setting a date on my phone to remind me when I need to cut it off or cancel it before it starts charging again, or before it starts charging, so that if I don't like it, I remember to cut it off.
Yeah, because once you get out of that introductory period, all of a sudden you start incurring expenses. Yeah.
And you're right. It could be $6 here, $4.99 here, $5.99 here. But when you have 4 or 5 or 6 different services and it's monthly and then over a year's time, that right there is part of someone's savings goal.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one of the central points here, just the lessons that we're going to learn for ourselves, and hopefully we can share some of this with viewers in the next stream. But also bringing up the fact too, this goes back a little bit to what I talked about, out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes when you set these things up, people tend to forget. And your advice of setting those reminders at the end of the introductory periods, et cetera, that's good advice. And it's also good advice too for people who need to be reminded, if they're not keeping a close watch on what's the money that's going out through the year, that you have these automated billing processes running in the background. and it's just money that's leaking right out of your account, and it all adds up. So Rachel and I, we're going to take a really hard, honest look at what we're doing here with our automated things and automated expenses. Now, this excludes necessities. So I should just point out, like, the electric bill, I pay that automatically. I'm not going to be cutting off my own electricity to save money. I'm not.
Please don't do that, Bruce.
Yeah, but we're looking at more of the discretionary services and subscription programs. So. If the next time we're live streaming, if you see it's really dark in here, then I've taken
the wrong one.
Yeah, I've taken some drastic measures if that's the case. But this will be interesting. We'll learn a little bit here, and it's not really as competitive as the previous, like the coupon saving thing. So this is just more about what we identify and the different decisions that we each arrive at individually about what's priority, what we keep, what we let go, and how we keep a closer eye on things if anything got out of sight during the year with these expenses. So it's going to be fun. We'll learn a lot about ourselves and each other, and then we'll share.
That's a great challenge. I think you should put that out there for everyone, and we need to create a hashtag or something. Make that the thing for 2021.
Yes,
indeed. Well, that's good. That'll be fun. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And Bruce and I will start that this week, and we'll check in on our next financial facts chat to update everyone on that. I just want to take a moment here to say to our viewers that we always welcome all of your personal finance questions. We look forward to answering them either by email, an article on our blog, or here in our live chat. If you do have questions, you can always type them in to the comment section on these live chat videos.
And one quick thing, just real quick, Lisa, we mentioned at the top of the show that you're with Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. Where can people go to find out more about your agency?
Thank you. Yes, Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. We are in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We are a member agency of the NFCC and a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. So financialpaths.org is our website. We also have a Facebook account as well. So look us up, and if you have questions, we have a myriad of services that we provide, from student loan counseling to foreclosure prevention counseling, and we're a first-time home buyer program agency as well, among other things. And so, yes, look us up, and if you have any questions or comments or questions, just let us know.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate both of you taking the time to talk to us today. I feel like I learned a lot, and I especially wanted to thank our special guest, Lisa, for taking the time. We definitely hope that for all of you watching, that you've learned something today, that we've helped you make some wise financial decisions. If you're watching after the live stream, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Lisa. We will talk again soon.
Thank you.